Welcome back, everybody, to the Generation Varied podcast. This is the show where we discuss pop culture, sports, politics, and business. I'm your host, Caleb Norris, and I am joined back again by my two co-hosts, Jack Widener and Ben Okenge. How we doing, guys?
We're back.
It's been a long time coming.
It's been too long, if you ask me.
Seriously. I've just been so excited to get back to doing this. It's such a good time, such a good part of the week to be able to chat with you guys and then also to be able to engage with everyone else too. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I am just anticipating so many great things to talk about ahead of us. It feels like we talk about a lot of things season one, but I think season two, we have so many new things we want to dive into and, deeper conversations and
so many new things.
Yeah, so I'm excited for season two to get started and we got great things that we want to talk about today.
Well, gentlemen, what have you guys been up to since we last ended the season? I think it was like mid-July or like early August that we ended it.
Yeah, something like that. And at that time, I was still out in Arizona. So since then, I have traveled back to Columbus, back in classes and everything. And literally the only thing that I've been up to this entire time has been my bodybuilding prep.
Shout out, Ben.
Yeah,
shout out,
just
Ben, man.
Ben,
finally just got done. I mean, it was great. It's always super hard, but that's part of why I do it. Such a rewarding process, and just like now, finally done, and that feels good. Because it really does take up your whole life. That's why I say like it's the only thing I've been up to since we stopped recording and like since we wrapped up season one. It's like night and day. That's it.
Ben, to put it in perspective for our listeners, how many shows did you compete in? And I guess what it takes from your perspective. I know you said it takes everything in part of your day, but for somebody who's not familiar with, what you're competing is bodybuilding. Like, what's a quick synopsis you would share with them?
Yeah. Just to make it brief, I guess since like from end of June until November 2nd, I was preparing for 2 different competitions, which required me to weigh out all my food, eat the same meals every single day according to a plan, crazy amounts of cardio, can't skip any workouts, that type of thing, and just got to stick to it day after day after day after day. But it's such a fun process, and if you don't know much about it, I highly encourage you just look into it. It's an interesting little niche.
It's incredibly inspiring. Like every time I see your guys' stuff, I'm just like, those are my friends out here. I mean, I would not do that. It's not my calling. It's not my. I don't define that as fun. The thing is this: Ben and I are actually very similarly. Okay, we're very similar. God created Ben, and Ben is super disciplined, and I'm a degenerate who is just trying to keep it together and trying to keep it, trying to keep up with Ben here. But dude, it was so inspiring watching you and like you and Abigail, like seeing the content that you guys create. Mm-hmm. It's so enjoyable to watch, honestly.
Yeah, huge congrats. I mean, while we're taking a break from season one, you were here turning up the heat. So
yeah, low key, it was a good thing we had that break, just in terms of my mental clarity. Because when you start dieting pretty hard, the mind is not sharp. So it feels good to be back, have some brain energy. Caleb, awesome. What's new with you, man?
Honestly, not a whole lot. I traveled a lot this summer. Did a lot. I feel like I hit a little bit of a rough patch. In like towards the end of August, but finally in a really good spot. I am actually, so it's funny because on the kickoff episode, I remember this, the kickoff episode of season one, I was moving to New York that week. And now the kickoff episode of season 2, I'm actually leaving New York right now. And so
Wow.
I made the decision.
Wow.
Yeah.
How's that been? Like just the process of I mean moving itself is already can weigh a lot on mentally, but
yeah,
you know, you're not just you're moving into New York and then out of New York. So yeah, I feel like that's a lot to handle.
Yeah, it's been a lot. It's been a lot emotionally. But I'm definitely making the right decision for me. I'll probably at some point. I'm definitely moving back to New York at some point. I love her. She is everything. Just the winters are pretty brutal and pretty brutal on the mental health and that kind of stuff when you only have one window and there aren't very many trees and grass and that kind of stuff.
That ain't it.
Wait, Concrete Jungle. I was kidding.
Concrete jungle. Yes, there are very few trees, very little greenery, very little sunlight. But I've loved my time here. I've met some really amazing people. Love my roommates. Love my experience here. And if in a perfect world, if everything goes well with how I am planning things out over the next 5 to 6 months, hopefully I'll get to move back like May, June, July next year. That's sort of my goal, is to just pop in every year for a couple of months and just sort of hang out.
Well, we'll definitely have to check in along the way, just to see how things are going.
But Jack, you've been doing some traveling yourself, though. Tell us all about it, man.
Yes. So since season 1, you know, wrapped, big thing for me and my wife Becca is just, you know, being in DC. So today actually marks us us living in here for 7 months. So time has flown very fast, and in a good way. We really enjoyed meeting a lot of different people here and rekindling friendship, deepening friendship, but also, yeah, meeting new communities, loving the museums, all the free stuff that happens in this area. I think that's something, you know, that's something I really appreciate about DC. There's always stuff happening every weekend, and it's like always educational, fun, music, and great food. So, but on top of that, a big part of my life the last several months has been around the Olympic and Paralympic Games. So, uh, just when it comes to work, that's something a lot of where I, you know, put my time in, and you know, had a chance to go to Paris this summer for about 3 weeks. So really witnessing the Olympic Games, the normal Olympic Games, for the first time, and that was something that took a lot of energy beforehand and even during, and especially after, just like kind of recovering from the work. Because I mean, for you guys, do you guys watch a lot of Olympics this summer? Like, how are you guys engaging with it? Yeah, what was that like for you guys?
I feel like I watched the gymnastics a lot. I watched a lot of swimming. I watched track and field, and I think that was just about it. I didn't watch a whole lot of men's basketball, unfortunately. I felt like it was always during the day when I was working.
Ben, what about you?
It was really hard for me to watch with my schedule, but I definitely tried to watch as much as I could. Even though I didn't get to watch a ton of it, it still felt like, okay, like the Olympics are back, if that makes sense. Like after Japan, like I don't know, I don't even remember anything notable from those Olympics, and now I'm like, oh, it's already been 4 years, and this like you said, it finally felt normal again. Like the Olympics were really happening. So I liked that about these ones.
I remember like growing up watching Olympics, there is a certain feeling where it captures a certain feeling where everyone watches that together, especially at home. We watch it with your parents, and you also watch a lot of sports you never really watch generally in between the 4 years. And like, hey, this is the time to watch gymnastics. This is the time to watch swimming or track and field. It's like
it's so funny. It's so funny how many athletic experts come out during the Olympics. These folk ain't watched gymnastics in 4 years, but the second Simone Biles gets on one of them pole vaulting beams, everybody and their mother has something to say about it on Facebook.
Yeah, so super. Yeah, I feel like this time for Paris, it did bring that out. But I can't speak for like families and kids because I wasn't with them. I don't know what that experience was like, but I hope that was the experience for many people. Like, oh, like this is what it was like when I watched as a kid, and maybe even new ways engaging it through social media because the athletes now can tell it from their perspective. When it comes to like living at the Olympic Village or preparing for a race or competition. So, but yeah, it was a great, one of the best experience I've ever experienced in my life, and I hope I get to do more of that in the future. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to Olympics, there's a lot of thoughts I have about it because this is actually my third Olympic Games I worked in. So the first I did the Tokyo Olympics. I was working around Olympic Winter Games for Beijing, and then now Paris. So that was something I have a lot of comparing to do. But I recognize that the last two Olympic Games were not normal in terms of
Yeah.
like the pandemic and whatnot, and this is also the first time back in Europe, so
Yeah.
the time zone shift. So I think that's another thing that's been really interesting to watch how the Americas engage in terms of like the viewership. Like, for
Yeah.
example, NBC, they smashed the viewership. Their strategy changed this time, and it was really good. It actually was the highest viewership since London 2012, which was a very very successful Olympic Games. So it's just really cool to see, especially our generation, Zillennial or Gen Z, to like witness a normal global event. And I'll caveat that like while World Cup 2022 was normal, but it still had that feel of like pandemic around
Yeah.
it. So I think this was like a, hey, this is what it's supposed to be like, and yeah, it's like the
Yeah.
standard. So I feel like it was super great for not only me but people around me when I talk to them. It's like, oh my gosh, you just came back from Paris. Like that's something they
Yeah.
talk about. Whereas when I came back from Tokyo, it's like, oh wait, why were you there?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
what
makes
what
sense.
was the I guess what was the like host city's attitude, or like
Yeah.
what was your experience with the locals there, with what was the general vibe, how was it being received? I know that there was a lot of controversy around it, so like what was your perspective actually being over there?
And
That
Jack,
was,
just keep it real though, bro, because here's the thing. We know one thing about French people. They are not welcoming.
oh no,
They don't want you there in their
Ben,
country.
Ben, you don't need to tell me that. I read so many articles, so many tweets, so many like one reaction to, hey, Paris is hosting hosting the Olympic Games. Historically speaking, most cities aren't really excited to host the Olympic Games. When I'm talking about the local, so this is the same for London. This is the same for Paris. So for example, like you said, Ben, like people in France that aren't like always welcoming to tourists most of the time, and there's actually a lot of protests is pretty like weave into the culture.
What?
Oh yeah.
Wait,
So
the French
yeah,
cold?
yeah.
Hey, you know what's crazy though, actually, is when the Olympics were going on, I was like traveling through a whole lot of national parks at that time when I was in Arizona, and every park we went to had so many French people, and I was like, yo, like low key, these people had the perfect opportunity. Turn their
Yeah,
house into an Airbnb, get out of there, make some money, stay away from the craziness. Like they were living their best lives.
and that's exactly what happened. One thing is there were a lot of people not in town, and that's one thing I noticed from going to the local coffee shops. Like, it's like, hey, is it busy? It's like, oh no, this is actually a slow summer. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? Like it's Olympics? It's like, oh no, usually like they have way more tourism. Another thing is like, for example, when it comes to protests, like a lot of French people didn't like the idea of hosting. So even, for example, one of the big initiative for the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, was to have a event on the Seine River, and that's where open water swimming will be taking place at 10K. And there are folks, they're like, hey, we're gonna poop in the river, because the initiative was to clean the water.
So my question.
That's how much French people are haters, bro. They're willing to poop in a river.
Listen,
I'm telling you, dude. That's an evil heart.
I can make so many French jokes, but here's the thing: I don't know where they would land at this point, because here's the thing: I learned the French jokes back when I was in a different political ideology, and so now I don't know if it transfers and if I'm allowed saying them anymore. But yeah, the French not known for their hospitality.
What I will say is, and this is a really cool story and experience for me to see it firsthand. I think beginning of the Olympics, the opening ceremony, there was just a lot of conversation around the opening ceremony itself. And then, as time moved on, like I was like, hey man, I wonder what's the attitude. Like I'm just kind of constantly checking the temperature of like, how's the city reacting to hosting the city. So the Olympic Games is 17 days, and I think this is about a week in. One night I walked from my hotel to the Louvre. Beautiful place. Oh my goodness. So this is also where the cauldron was located. So the cauldron is essentially a huge part of the Olympic Games, where this the host city gets to design it. And it's a fire that's lit up from the beginning of the Olympic Games until it's over. So it's lit up for 17 days straight. And the cauldron for Paris 2024 was it looked like a hot air balloon, which I found out it's where hot air balloons from, which was crazy.
Paris?
Like France.
Oh, okay.
So, and every night at 10 p.m. the cauldron ascends in the air, which has never happened before. Usually the cauldron's in one fixed place, on fire the whole time. But this hot air balloon lifts up in the air every night at 10 p.m. And it kind of became a thing where people will travel to go watch this thing. Mm-hmm. So I went to one night, my first night to the Louvre, and seeing the beautiful buildings, architecture, and just simply being like, wow, this is such a historical location. And now I'm seeing the cauldron being lit up. And after that, I walked to Harry's New York bar, which is an American bar inspired, and it was really cool. I met with some friends that I, still stay in touch with from Tokyo, and there I really got a chance to talk to some locals, and their attitude, kind of like poke holes. Like, hey, how do you feel about the Olympic Games so far and whatnot? And that was a time when I'm like, oh, like there's a shift in how they feel about hosting Olympic Games. So, and these are the points that they shared with me. It's like, when you watch these historical venues, buildings turning into a sporting event, the Eiffel Tower hosting the beach volleyball, the Palace of Versailles hosting the equestrian event, the Champs-Élysées hosting the fencing, like all these amazing location turning the sport event, like there is really cool. And not only that, you're seeing the best French athlete dominating, winning gold medals at the events, and then standing on the podium singing the national anthem. It moves you. And I'm telling you this, when I watch the events, the French people it's like they put aside all their differences and just cheered for their athlete, because the athlete is the center of the story. We know how much they pour into this, because again, we don't hear about these athletes until the Olympics. Most of the time, or they don't come around, like Simone Biles. We don't know anything about her until the Olympics. And then you watch athletes like Leon Marchand or Terry, like these are rising stars for the face of France, and for them, like the French people, like that was just really cool. It really moves you when you see like high character, inspiring people competing at the highest level, which is like just over the love of sports. And when you walk around 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. at night, like all these bars are all showing the Olympics, and it was just like one of the coolest thing I experienced, because you'll see people wearing all different nationality gear, face painting, just like I'm going to watch an event. And yeah, it was really cool to witness. I'd never been in the city like that. Well, I haven't been in Paris, but like just a city hosting a event that's taking place in all over the city.
Yeah. One thing that's so interesting, I remember watching a couple of the ceremonies and just feeling just such a there's like a spirituality to it. There's something very spiritual about witnessing somebody dedicate their lives to something,
Mm-hmm.
and to see that like finally pay off. There's such a triumph of the human spirit, if you will, that I think is so special to witness, that like nothing brings us together, I think, like the Olympics. You know what I'm saying? Even for like, especially when you talk about like how culturally, like you might not even be from a country, but there might be people within your like ethnic group that are there's like you have diaspora like all over, right? And so it's like just feeling this like collectiveness, I think,
Mm-hmm.
is so beautiful and special. And I'm so glad that you had an opportunity to go over there and be a part of that, man.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I can't wait to experience more of that. I think there's just so many experiences there that I remember for the rest of my life, and seeing those amazing landmarks turning into like the Olympic rings on the Eiffel Tower, the Paralympic agitos on the Arc of Triumph, like just
Yeah, there's
simple
like
things like
so
that.
many unique things that you got to see. If you had to like wrap it up into like one or two things though, what was the most either unique or the most surprising thing of your experience there?
I think the most surprising, but I did expect this, was when you just walk anytime during the day, you will see an Olympic fan. And honestly, like, you also see a lot of athletes just exploring the city. Like, you'll be walking, going get your matcha tea, and all of a sudden Team Belgium is riding on these like metro bicycle, just like in their gear. Or you go to a bar, and then next you know, oh, that's Team Netherlands all just hanging out, and then outside to your right, oh, that's Team Canada. And this is like so normal. Like, there's just people from all over the world, they're hanging out and wearing their country on their back. And so that was like one thing, like, to I didn't really experience when I was in Tokyo, that I missed out on, because of the pandemic. None of the athletes was allowed to go into the city. I wasn't really, everything closed around 8 p.m. Whereas in Paris, like everything was open and people were out and about the whole time. Another thing that was probably the most unique and my favorite experience was definitely watching Team USA basketball. I had the
Hey, you were texting me.
I
Dude.
I was so
Dude.
salty.
I
Every
felt like
photo you would send me, I was
I
like,
felt
how
like
did you even get to sit here?
I thought I got one the golden ticket. I got to see Team USA in the semifinal against Serbia, and I also got a chance to see the gold medal match against France. So like, two very different experiences as a lifelong basketball fan who grew up overseas in Taiwan, streaming illegally, watching LeBron, KD, and Curry play, and now I'm
Yeah,
watching it
bro.
all playing at the same time.
That's once in a
And
lifetime.
Mama,
it,
I made it. I made it. Yeah. It's incredible. Like I like tell what was it like
Mhm.
experiencing that, you know?
So it was the end. Towards the end, I got in a little early. It was towards the end of, for example, Germany and France was playing, and I'll try to keep this story short because I know we don't jump into other things. Germany and France was playing in the semifinal, and the French been losing the whole time. And one thing about the French, they love cheering together. Like, they clap, sync. Like, they're on sync. They know the song, they know the chants. USA only got USA, USA. French, They got everything. They're pulling all these, like, I was like, this is incredible. Anyways, they're losing the whole game to Germany, who's, favored to go to the gold medal match. And all of a sudden they came back, big comeback, and now they're winning. 2 minutes left. There's this kid in front of me wearing a Victor Wembanyama jersey from Spurs. So Victor Wembanyama is a new NBA star, rising star player from France. And, this kid stood up, looked to the corner, not at the corner, and walked over, and the security, like, stopped them. And now there's like more eyes looking at the tunnel area. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, what's going on? Like, I stood up and I saw the jawline of Brent Hill, Ty Lue, and Coach Steve Kerr. So these are like coaches I kind of watch, as high school. And then look on the jumbotron, Steph Curry, headphones in, biting his mouth guard. The Team USA aura was flowing through the arena, even though the French is watching their team about to go to the gold medal match. And I'm telling you, that Serbia match was a spiritual experience, because the best player in the world, Jokic, the Joker, is about to take down the best team in the world. Like, not just like best team of all sports in the world. And to see LeBron, KD, and Curry going to fourth quarter, like, we're playing AAU style. Whoever is on fire, give me the ball. And Carmelo Anthony coaching on the side, he's literally folding his arm, calling the plays, and I'm watching Travis Scott, like Coach Don. I'm watching all these stars not on their phones, locked in, watching the game, and it was just, I feel like I got to see prime LeBron, prime KD, prime Joel Embiid, prime Curry, prime Joker, all in one game, and it was just like, I could not believe it. After the game, I went to the bar with the person I went to watch, and we just had a couple of drinks, and next thing you know, we raised our glass because Curry's dad just walked by us. We just acknowledged and thanked him. So, like, just like, I'm never gonna forget that. The feeling of, like, it was the game, the competition was so good, it pulled me in. And it was just, as a basketball game, that was probably one of the greatest fourth quarter I've ever seen.
Dude, congratulations that you got to go. Happy for you. Those moments where it feels like everybody's just like, everything hinges on like a breath. You're just so locked in. So they're just so beautiful, and like, you can't describe it to anybody else. And I just, dude, congratulations. Would you recommend that people plan to go to the next Olympics?
100%, especially for people our age. We have not hosted the Olympic Games since 1996. This will be the first time, and not only in the United States, but in Los Angeles. It is going to turn the world upside down in a really good way, in my opinion. America, it's a big sports nation, and there's going to be new sports. Flag football is going to be there. Who Patrick Mahomes might be quarterback. Like, we're pulling a new audience, and you get the chance to cheer on your country and from home base. Like, bring all the college football, NFL fandom to LA, and let's, like, be part of that. Like, that's gonna be amazing. Like, imagine Ohio State fans and Michigan fans all cheering for the same team. Like,
that's basically what it is.
Like,
it would be amazing to witness. I know for myself, I'm planning on being there in LA. But yeah, I'm so glad you had that opportunity, man. Well, switching topics here a little bit, we are going to talk a little bit about the election results. One thing that we pride ourselves on here is sitting at a table and having tough conversations. And that's exactly what I think we're going to be having today as we sort of unpack the election results. I'm excited to hear, Ben and Jack, your guys' perspective, your guys' thoughts on things as well. But we're going to start off by sort of just laying a foundation of some basic information here and talking about why this is such a big deal for our generation, and politically, globally, what this election meant. So President-elect Trump swept all 7 of the swing states closely watched in the 2024 election, according to the Associated Press vote count. the big picture here is that Trump's decisive victory gives him 312 electoral votes and puts him on track to be the first Republican candidate in 2 decades to actually have won the popular vote. So Trump's win underscores his dominance as the Republican Party kingmaker. There was a little bit of question a couple of years ago if the MAGA train was over, because it did not help very many representatives get elected that were on the ticket 2 years ago. It hurt a lot of people, but it is safe to say that it is not over. This political movement isn't. So although the states considered to be battlegrounds vary from cycle to cycle, such a commanding swing state sweep has not been seen in many elections. So back in 2020, President Biden had won Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, Arizona, Wisconsin, states that Trump had the previous cycle. Of the states now considered battlegrounds, Trump won only the North Carolina that one cycle. He swept everything and added Nevada, which has been Democratic for 2 years. Okay, so we have not seen anything like this politically in a long, long time. This is the equivalent of the 1984 red takeover from Ronald Reagan when he won like almost every single state. This is, I would say, on par with being as significant. Even Obama did not get all of the swing states that he got. And like, I will say, though, Obama did get Florida, which was crazy that Obama won Florida twice. I was not expecting that. But all of that to say, what are our thoughts? What are our early reactions, folks? What do we think about this loss? I want to preface this with saying I'm going to share who I voted for. You guys don't have to, but I will respect.
I'm going to share who I voted for. Nobody, because I'm not an American citizen and I cannot vote. So pretty simple from my end. In fact, like, I feel like that gives me a pretty unique perspective in this, because I really don't have a whole lot of skin in the game. So, and I've really only been like following American politics for, like 8 years. So, not very long. That said, right before the election happened, we all had a phone call and we were just talking about, hey, like, what do you think's going to happen? And I had said I have a feeling that Trump is going to win. And I did not think it was going to be like this, though. I thought it was going to be a really close, hard-fought battle between the two, and just like as that map kept popping up with different colors, I was like, oh, okay. And to have seen that he won the popular vote, that was what really surprised me. Because to think like there are more people in this country that not only vote Republican, but voted for Donald Trump. Like, I just not the atmosphere that I would have guessed from just my interactions with people. But that could just be indicative of a bunch of different things. Like, for one, it is not popular and it's not like socially acceptable to like actively support Donald Trump. And so like a lot of these voters have literally just been hiding for the past little while, and now is the opportunity to actually see and count. So I don't know, there were a lot of interesting elements about the results.
Picking back what you said, I think so before this, last week, I also predicted that Trump was going to win, but I also agree with Ben, not in this way. Back when 2020, when he won, he won the electoral votes count, but by popularity, he didn't. So there's some sense like, okay, like as a country, like there's more people that agree that he shouldn't be in office. And then, next election, Joe Biden won. So this time, not only did he win Senate, House, and government, but the popular vote is like what Ben said, like, wow, like there's no way around. Like, America wants, Trump back in office. And so that was one thing that was definitely surprised by me. I personally won't share who I voted for, but I will say, like, it's been really I think since moving to America 8 years ago and being more active in politics and just watching how this all went, I think that just is just very interesting. And watching how people reacted or like the lead up to it, I feel like a lot of people were ready to turn the page of this Trump era and had a lot of confidence we are able to do that. But we are not turning the page yet. It felt like this is just arc 2 of the story, and it's just a crazy arc. Because like what Ben said, like this was just, you know, he clearly won, like smashed it.
I think my thoughts on it are this. The first thing I would say is that I want to be like really surprised, but I don't think I am, and here's why. I think a lot of people, we know a lot of reasons why this has happened. I think one of the first reasons is that the number one thing that issue with voters as to why they said that they voted for Donald Trump was the economy and the wars, the international wars that were going on, and they wanted peace and those conflicts, and they wanted cheaper gas and eggs. And the thing is this though is that in reality, if you do when blind tests were done, majority of Americans agreed with Kamala Harris's policy, basically, and agreed with her economic plan. Almost every single major economist in the country was saying her economic plan actually has some teeth to it. It should work. He didn't really have a plan outside of tariffs, and then saying that he was going to make other countries sort of, pay and that kind of stuff. All of that rhetoric. Um, the thing that the thing that really surprised me in all of this is that I just thought that there would be more people that, growing up at least, we heard a lot about, I feel like, integrity and character and that kind of stuff, and growing up to be a person of honor, right? And being an honorable person. And I was thrown off by the fact that it feels like everybody, like in every circle that I've talked to, in the business realm, in the church realm, in I feel like almost everybody has just thrown out all morals as long as the dollar is like the top value. You know what I'm saying? Like the highest
Yeah.
priority.
I think when I talk to, those who do share, like, hey, I voted for Kamala, I think the biggest, okay, so let me rephrase, those who chose not to vote for Trump, like, I think the biggest thing, they can't see past that, like the character of who he is, and yes, definitely I feel like, hey, like, we're just ignoring a lot of all this things that Trump has said and done. That's like,
Abysmal,
yeah,
abysmal behavior. A 34-time felon, somebody who has been actually accused in a court of law of sexual misconduct and rape. Somebody that has, you know what I'm saying? And here's the thing. I want to make this very clear. I'm not even like anti conservatives or like super anti Republican. I have a lot of friends and family that are conservatives and Republicans, and I believe that we should be able to exist without hating everybody. I just vehemently think that this person specifically is a direct threat to democracy. And I think that we send a horrible message to the world and to future generations that somebody of this character and this integrity is able to hold the highest office in the land, the most honorable seat, one of the most honorable seats in the world. That it should be, at least, right? Should be, at least. We should be striving for those ideals. So it's been pretty amazing to see how many people have been pretty much just like, yeah, fuck that. I want free eggs and gas. Like,
Caleb, tell me about your perspective, and Ben, I'm definitely curious to hear from you too. When it comes to the Democratic Party, I think you cannot argue that they had a good campaign. You cannot
Yeah.
say that they
yeah.
put policy in the forefront. They did not.
Yeah.
They spent close to $1 billion, not just for the presidential race. When you break it down to the Senate race and the House race, every category, they spent way more than the Republican Party, and yet they didn't get any. So, from your perspective, both of you guys, what do you have to say?
I mean, I think the common theme that I've seen in every election since I've started watching American politics, which, like I said, is not a long time, the Democrats have always run into the same issue, which is just they can't put forth their best candidate. Like, they can't make a nomination, and they spend so much time, effort, money just going back and forth on who they're even gonna nominate that they end up having to settle. And, you know, and that's exactly what happened here. Like, starting off having Joe Biden running again just clearly wasn't going to be a good decision. They kind of stuck with it.
Sleepy Joe.
Yeah, exactly. And then they switch it up last minute to Kamala, who even the Democrats didn't like for that position. It's just like, it's messy, and that's their issue every time. They're divided from within, so it's very hard to win when you operate that way. And then, like you said, her campaign was very weak. It wasn't policy heavy. It was basically just her saying, like, you can't vote for him. And I don't think that provides like adequate legs for a whole political campaign. Like, it can be a part of it. It was certainly a part of his was, hey, you can't vote for her, but it also, there needs to be a lot more behind your stance. And that wasn't really brought to the table from my perspective.
So here's what I'll say. I think, and this isn't for our listeners, this isn't the only time that we're going to talk about this. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about this a couple more times this season, as news stories are developing, as we get closer to the inauguration day, all of that kind of stuff. But my high level views is that the Democrats are in trouble because I think everybody's realizing we are in echo chambers, and everybody thought that this wasn't possible. We haven't had a Republican candidate win the popular election in years. I think more than 2 decades, I think it's been. And so I think the Democrats are in trouble. I would agree with Ben. I think they have really poor leadership. I also think that the leadership that they do have, like Nancy Pelosi, should have been off the scene for a hot second. She's an amazing fundraiser. She's a great leader. But she's one of the reasons why we're in this crap hole that we're in right now. I think there's a lot of social divides, especially between, I think, different people groups. There's been a lot of people on Black Twitter that are like, listen, F this. Like, Black people been struggling in this country since we got here. We gonna be okay. But some of y'all about to feel it now, you know? And so I think there's been a lot of social unrest that's going to continue to be upheld. That's the thing that stresses me out more, is like, I'm just tired of the constant drama cycle with politics, and I was looking forward to hopefully getting a decent candidate that would just like do a good job, and I didn't have to hear about every single day. Like, I miss the times when I didn't have to think about the president every day. And I just think, like, all in all, very surprised. Democrats are in trouble. They're gonna have to change their strategy. They never addressed, to Ben's point, they never addressed the economy. No. And here's the thing.
A lot of issues, actually.
Here's the thing. They are correct. Mm-hmm. Technically speaking, if you want to talk about global inflation, America is doing the best out of almost any other country. We have increased jobs. If gas is hovering around $3 a gallon, during the Obama presidency, that stuff was averaging up to $4. Gas, technically speaking, is not outrageous, right? Groceries, I personally think, just from my research, that there's a lot of market manipulation that goes into a lot of these grocery prices that these companies are doing right now to try and get cheaper taxes under a Republican administration. But here's the thing. Hasn't been a Democrat that's had a great economic policy in Obama's 2008 policy. That was 16 years ago.
I definitely agree. I'll say two things here. One, when I look into like voting when it comes to like New York and California, I listen to a few different conversations, and it's really interesting for states size, traditionally blue states, how close they were to becoming red states. And yes, the strategy needs to change if you're a Democratic Party because, look at the map. And not only that, your blue states are swinging more to the right. And, I saw this graph from Financial Times. So it's from 2020. Every category of individuals have like swing white. So that includes white non-college men, white non-college women, white male 45 to 45 to 64, female, Hispanic, Asian, Black, white. The only two categories that swing more to the left since 2020 is white college women and 65 plus years old. It's incredible to see just how, the numbers are telling us a story right now. And I want to know more about that, especially as this maybe like by next year we'll hear more like what is this vote, what does this election tell, like what story is it telling us. I think, and that's the second thing I would say is, yeah, they didn't address the biggest concerns that common American people have, which is, I don't care who's endorsing which Halloween is endorsing who's gonna make a change, what are you gonna do, who's actually gonna do something. Because right now I feel like I'm paying too much money for you to have too much power over me, and this is something I think everyone will agree on. Trump gave his answers, and Kamala just pointed like what is he gonna do essentially. And that's the part where they need to change the strategy, because what a campaign. Because you have to admit it, like this was one of the craziest. Well, I haven't been super like into politics until coming to the United States and American politics. You can say like this is probably one of the historical ones, like you said earlier, Caleb, just comparing to the one where you said Reagan, he only won Minnesota and every other state was red.
He won every single state. It was a red sweep.
Yeah. So
it's crazy when you think about it. I think to wrap things up on my end, I'll say this. I'm still in a lot of shock. Do I think that the world is going to end? I don't think so. I know that that's a possibility, though. Do I think we are perpetually flirting with the end? Absolutely. But I'm going to try my best to be hopeful. I'm going to make the most out of the next 4 years. And yeah, I am also, though, with my fellow solidarity with all of the other Black people. We ain't picketing. We ain't protesting for shit for the next 4 years. Y'all can have that. We showed up to the ballot box and we voted our conscience. And if shit starts popping off, y'all gonna have to handle it by yourselves, because Black people are not. Okay. Ain't no more cookout invites going out.
I do want to hear two last things from you both. What does this mean for Americans moving forward? For those who did vote for Trump or those who voted for Kamala, like what's your maybe encouragement, or I'm sure a lot of people are grieving and there's a lot of people who are celebrating. Like in the age of polarization, like how do you go about, especially with people, families or friends who like voted someone different than you? Like, I know Ben, this is more unique for you because you obviously you didn't vote, but I'm sure you are close to people around you who are feeling both type of emotions. So like, what would you say to them? Yeah.
I mean, just to call back to last season, you just gotta lock in, baby.
The answer to all of it really is lock in. Okay?
Yo, that's too funny, man. That's too funny. Lock in.
No, I'm just playing. But in a sense, it's true though. Like, listen, man, your bills still got to get paid tomorrow morning. It doesn't matter who's sitting in that Oval Office. Like, you still, I don't know. This to me has never. It's never been a decision or a moment that affects the day-to-day, every day. And so I think it is important to just remember, like, no matter what you're feeling, whether you're on the highest of highs or lowest of lows. First of all, if you are on the highest of highs or the lowest of lows over this, maybe you got some deeper reflection to do about what this all means to you anyway. But even more than that, it's just like, these are all things that come and go. And like the sun will still rise tomorrow. So, I don't know. That's all I can think about it.
What I'll say is this, is I think if you're disappointed, just sit with that for a little bit. If you're scared, make plans and prepare now. Find community, find people that can have your back. Do I think that it's the people that I feel like I think that are affected by this the most are always going to be the most vulnerable. So the people that I'm thinking about are always going to be, you know, trans women. I think about women in red states who, you know, potentially might lose their some of their rights. About um, I think about Latino people and the people that are here, and whether they're documented or undocumented immigrants. I think about some of the racism that even documented immigrants are going to experience over the next 4 years because of this. And I think if you're afraid of those things happening, your fears are valid. And that I think we have to lean into community to help solve those things. And then if you're rejoicing, I would just say that I hope everything that you voted for happens.
Yes. Check yourself. Don't ruin your friendship with your family over this. People are more than what they believe in terms of politics. Accountability. You know, if you won, let's bring the same energy. You know, if you see things we don't like about Trump, keep him accountable. You know, in the same side for if you vote for Kamala, like keep asking those questions, but also extend grace. You know, because people are grieving. But like what Ben said, sun is still gonna rise up next day, and we still gotta stay curious because that's the only way. You know, I think we will not be even more polarized than where we are at right now. So, but no, definitely want to keep talking about this. Yeah, there's so much to unpack. Locked in.
There really is. And listeners, you know, we are a podcast that likes to discuss the hard-hitting issues, and only the hardest hitting issues.
Headline news only.
And so for that reason, we're going to talk about the second most, after what we just talked about, important legal or political, however you want to see it, decision. This week's been a big one, guys, because Young Thug has officially been freed. He is released from jail, and the black community is
lifestyle. Came straight from the bottom to top my lifestyle.
And he's back. He's back out here.
What does this mean, Ben? What does this mean for you? Caleb, you too, Brad. What does this mean?
Let me just briefly,
somebody who, you know, or our listeners who, like, who's Young Thug?
Okay.
Why is he a cultural icon? Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I can't give the whole background on who Young Thug is, but what I can tell you is back in 2011, maybe it was 2012, I heard him on a song with T.I., and then I heard him drop 2 more songs that same summer, so that would have been 2012 at that point. And then I've been hearing him like at least a couple times a week since then. So he is a prolific artist in the hip hop game, whether you love him or you hate him.
He's all you play that song.
That one meme that's like my friends like being the FBI and finding a guy like on social media, and it's like the black guy that's like leaning in looking at the computer.
Yeah.
That's Young Thug.
There we go. Young Thug is actually in a lot of memes. Because he's more than just a hip hop icon. He's a culture icon.
He's he's just funny, and I've enjoyed low key like watching the court case from like a little bit of a distance, just because people will like it's been all sort of public, and so I've been able to like watch like some of like the clips that have popped up, but I'm glad he's out. It's funny because if you look at like the list of things that he has to do, there's like a long list of like
yeah, there is. It's
list.
pretty insane. Let me just give a quick context of kind of what these legal proceedings have even been. So, Young Thug, he was arrested back in May of 2022 on RICO charges. For those who don't know, RICO stands for Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organization Act. Basically, this is just like this is an act, a set of different rules that basically recognize organized crime groups. Okay, it's basically the whitewashed way of saying they're watching the gangs, and that's literally all these RICO charges ever are, is just gang activity. So he was arrested back in 2022 on there were like 56 different charges on this, and most of them, almost all of them, ended up just being complete BS. It's been such a long process. He's been denied bond twice. It took over a year even just to seat a jury. There have been several delays, 2 changes in judges, and after all of this time of Young Thug being behind bars, he finally took a plea deal, pleading guilty on October 31st, and so now he will be sentenced to 15 years of probation, and his probation has all kinds of conditions. You guys, I'm not even gonna read it off for you. You gotta look it up.
It's like, don't let us catch you in Atlanta.
Literally, basically, the only thing that came out of the only thing that he's gonna be able to do when he gets out is just make more music. And did you see that they had like he made a specific clause that like even though he's not going to be allowed to associate with any of the gang members anymore, that like he's still going to be allowed to make music with Gunna. So
really?
Yeah. So they wrote that in there. His lawyer was like, this was one thing that he was not going to budge on. He still needed to be able to make music with Gunna.
That's amazing.
I love that. I love that. The music that we're going to get out of this.
Oh.
Also,
it's coming soon.
Ben, here's the thing. I saw something. I almost texted it to you. That the day that Young Thug got out of prison, Drake showed up with $1 million in cash to like give it to him. And all I could think of is I feel like Drake was trying to recruit Young Thug like early to like be on his side, and like the global rap beef, he was like,
it's like, listen, bro, I've been praying for you every day since you've been in there, bro.
You know what Young Thug should be doing? He should be invited by Kendrick to perform at Super Bowl. How cool would that be?
No, that would not be cool because what's going on with Lil Wayne. That's why.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I saw a lot of that.
Maybe that's a topic for another episode, but
yeah.
Wow. Anyway, his court case was a super, super interesting one. If you ever get bored and have like 10 minutes to spare, go look it up. There's some really interesting things, both like actual legal conversations, such as like they allowed for this case for song lyrics from his music to be allowed as evidence in court. So that was pretty crazy. But then there's also just tons of lighthearted memes and viral moments from the court throughout the trial, because it was pretty funny. Like at the end of the day, when you're sitting in a courtroom playing Young Thug's music and everybody's trying hard not to bop their head a little bit,
everybody's like,
like there's too many memes that came out of it.
The Thug music, please.
I saw the video where the lawyer, Young Thug's lawyer, was just like, "Wow, like you made this? Wow."
Yeah, there are a bunch like that.
Love Young Thug. So glad he is out.
Yeah, it's great to have him back, and the hip hop community is ready for that celebration. But anyway, wrapping up here, as always, thank you guys for joining us today. We're so excited to finally be back, starting up season 2.
So back.
So back. And we're locked in too. So we hope this episode brightened your day, and we really appreciate this community that we get to build with all of you. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to rate us 5 stars on whatever listening platform you're listening to it, and share this episode with a friend. Follow us on social media at Generation Varied on all platforms, and feel free to shoot us a DM with any other topics that you'd like to hear us talk about in the future. We could not do this episode without you. We couldn't do any of this without you. So we really, really appreciate all your engagement, guys. And like we said, we're back. Season 2 is underway. Can't wait for another great season.